Hey, and welcome back to Elementary 72 Gaming. Before I get into this video, I'd like to ask you all to please leave a like or comment on my video and consider subscribing to my channel. For today's video, I'm going to be talking about the off-season in EVE Echoes, what you should be aiming for and what you should be getting ready for. So the off-season has started. The reason it's the off-season is we're between T8 and T9. It's 60 days for the leaders to T9. It is about 70 to 80 days for the rest of the players to T9, and then there's the late crew who are only breaking T7, those who are part of the later joining to the game. So they are going to be way behind us. There is no way they're going to catch up to us right now. So let's get into this with a quick and easy discussion on what we need to do. So number one, we need to start getting ready for high power doctrines. Now, why do we need to get ready for high power doctrines? Well, I'm going to explain it. So if you see this particular class of ships, when it comes to doctrines, you need two ships. You need a forward shield breaker and you need a backup armor breaker. Now there are two options for them. The shield breakers are lasers and railguns. They break shields really well. The armor breakers are cannons in the form of heavy assault. That's going to be your tornado. So tornado is going to be something that you're going to have to build for your fleets, and a Naga, Oracle, or Talos is going to be your second option. Now this is how it will play. If you are playing your formats in your battle, you're going to want to have a shield field regardless of whether you are playing shield field or armor field. And let me explain to you why. Armor field does have damage reduction, but if you impact one ship hard enough in the armor field, you can relate a massive amount of damage back to your link ship. And once your link ship is down, you don't have the ability to have that armor up anymore, and any smart fleet will take it out. So here's a quick example. The Oracle can output 12,000 DPS. Now obviously, if you're in a standard fleet that's 10 ships, that is 120,000. Reduce it to 10% for the sake of a shield field. That means that you can only do 12,000 DPS. You can only do 12,000 DPS to the main ship, to the Guardian. And once you take into effect the resistance of 65% plus the resistances on the ship, it's going to reduce to about 4,000. Right? So I do know that is just over 60%. So yes, the reduction was just over 60. I didn't do anything in addition to what I would have originally said. So you're going to take this massive damage reduction and you're going to deal about 4,000 DPS. Now it's about 4,000 because it isn't exactly 4,000. It's 3,700 and something DPS per shot, and that is through another ship into the shield field with a full fleet of oracles. Now, if you keep applying this DPS with the 6-second interval that the Oracle does give you, you're going to be able to apply it in 20 seconds to a full shield field. Unfortunately, all the shield field ships are MOA Guardians at the moment because they're the most powerful shield fields that we can use. And they have between 12 and 16,000 shield. So it could take you 4 shots, it could take you 5 shots, depending on how powerful your ship formation is. Now, if they have the upward of 16,000 shield, they don't have that much of recovery. They aren't running large reps, so you don't really have to worry about them recovering too much of shield, even with support in the bubble. So if you hit them hard enough with 4 or 5 volleys, the shield should go down and you can directly attack the MOA. Now here's the whole thing about it. Once you have done that massive DPS and you're in the phase where the ship is taking majority of its damage, you impact as fast as possible, pull the shield down and destroy the ship. Once it's gone, it's now an easier format fight, but you still have the chance to run away. If you were running the shield field, you have a chance to run away. Or if you're running both shield field and armor field, at this point is where your armor field takes over and your armor doctrine can now stay very safe. That is the whole idea behind double deployment. Now this only applies if you take on anybody who's smart enough, intelligent enough to use the high-end ships. Obviously you have a lot of people who are foolhardy. They prefer to take a full fleet of cruisers, and let me explain why it's foolhardy. Now, a foolhardy approach means you do something very, very effective. It seems like it's working, but you take the negative fall on it. You deploy 1,000 players with your low-end, low-cost ships. 1,000 players times 100,000 per ship. As you can see, it's already quite big. It's 10 billion, right? So that's for a 1,000-man fleet. You take on a mission which is going to take you 4 hours to complete. So that's 4 hours of gameplay lost. You destroy a 3.5 billion station. So that's 3.5 billion. You destroy about another billion worth of ships. So 4.5 billion. What is your potential gain in that exact same amount of time? Had that entire fleet not been engaging in that war? Well, let's see. 4 hours with those types of numbers, every person there could have completed a bad hair day. That's 300 million apiece. So that's 300 million times 1,000. 300 million. That's 300 billion. So you lost 300 billion for the gain of a 4.5 billion loss to your enemy. Yeah, as far as my maths goes, you lost that war. You literally lost 300 billion for the benefit of 4.5 billion to your enemy. Yeah, you lost. You absolutely lost. You 100% lost that war. In terms of the actual gain to the corp, you lost 30 billion in taxes. There you go. There was the corp amount that you lost. Every player had a massive gain. You lost the war. You won the battle, you lost the war. That's the way that it's going. You're skirmishing, you're losing, and you don't even notice that you're losing because you're over expanding, you're over engaging. If you had upped your taxes to 100%, you've lost even more because you've angered the part of your corp that isn't in the battle. So yeah, well done to you. Okay, so let's move on to the next phase within that entire situation. Now, I know building these ships is a lot more expensive. It'll cost you about 300 billion to outfit 100 players with these ships. But here's the benefit to it. When you're running that massive op, you don't have to deploy 1,000 players to do 1,000 players worth of DPS. These ships can output 12,000 DPS. That is equal to 6 players. So each one is worth 6 players. If you are a 200-man fleet where you have a possibility to do a 1,000-man fleet, that means you are still up 200 players overall on the fleet. Your defense is higher considering the ship that you are using. You are upward of 26,000 as your default beginning. So with everything added in, your default beginnings, your total power, you're looking at the majority of power within these ships outweighing the others. So you had more effective HP with the larger fleet, obviously. That is why it took so long to complete the fight. You did lose a ton of ships. When you came to these bigger ships, you lost a small amount. You did a lot more damage. You took out a lot more ships. You could do things which are way more risky, way more powerful. You could use long-range assault. You could use high-end assault. And those are all of the benefits to you. That is why you use these high-end assaults. They're mini battleships. They can win the battle for you. Now, I do know exactly what I'm saying. I do know that I am obviously ruling out one thing. High performance in CTAs do always help with the battle because they also delay your opponent in deciding who they're going to hit. And the only reason to use massive numbers is actually to glitch out your enemy, to force your enemy into such a heavy situation that they can't really get back into the fight once they've started to take losses. That is why you use overwhelming numbers. It takes out overwhelming force. So if you are playing these strategies, there's something else to note. You need a 3-tier fleet. Now, fleets can be made up of 100 players a person, but the primary fleet who leads the entire assault is only going to be a 50-man fleet. Now, this 50-man fleet can either run faction cruisers or faction battleships. So they are a very expensive fleet. At your beachhead, they are your beachhead team. Now, the reason why you would want to run faction battleships is they're very effective, they're very tanky, and when they jump through a gate and they form these 50-man squads and they just wipe out an enemy, they give you a chance to pull in the rest of your fleet with these high-end assault ships as well to give you an even greater edge. So say you wanted to destroy a station And let's say that the total travel time is 20 minutes to the main gate. Your assault beachhead fleet will jump one jump ahead of you all the time. So as you finally reach the point where you're getting to the sector, the beachhead fleet has jumped into the sector. Your second fleet has now formed up on the gate. Your third fleet will defend 10 gates behind you to prevent you from being pincered. Now, what is a pincer? A pincer is where you fight an enemy, you win the war, you win the battle, and as you're trying to run away, you hit into another two enemy forces, and they corner you in a way where you can't run away from them. You're forced to fight them. So you obviously don't want to end up in a situation, even with large numbers. A quick confusion can cause your group to go crazy and do weird things. That is what they're always counting on. And FCs generally mess up in that situation, so it's not something you want to risk because your FC is really good. So here's how you would play it. Your beachhead team actually jumps in, they open out the formation, and you're pushed to your attack point. Your beachhead team falls back to the gate, they fall back again, and they start moving up with the defense team. They move up to the last defense post on that last gate, and the rest of the team starts jumping up. So your reinforcement team will start grouping up again. 10 gates by 100 is 10 men to each one of the gates. It does make a slowdown in the approach of a pincer. That is their whole objective, that is their whole purpose, and they are running expensive ships. So with everybody now fleeting in and you have completed your operation, which will take about 30 minutes with the high-end assault, you now start jumping back gates. Let's say that it's 20 gates. Now your beachhead team will take the lead again and they'll start pushing. So once your assault team is behind them, your entire reinforcement fleet will jump one jump behind. And this is the whole idea. If they run into a pincer, the assault group is built particularly to take on the assault. So the beachhead is going to take on this massive force coming into them. They're going to hit them hard. The assault group is going to jump in directly behind them. You're going to force their pincer to fall back on them because they got overwhelmed. It's going to force them to draw back this immediate force. The reinforcement group will jump in, and now you form a single fleet of reinforcement and assault, while the beachhead forms one up to the front. And as you keep jumping till you reach home sector, once you're home, you all jump in and you can prepare for defense fleets. Now, defense fleets with these three form fleet is going to go as follows. Defense fleet 1 on the station, assault fleet on the gate. Now that's obviously if you're in a single gate system. If you're not in a single gate system, the defense becomes bigger. You need to defend both gates or 3 gates or 4 gates. I don't know the exact numbers because I do know you get different types of systems. You deploy on the gates, you sit and you wait. As they enter, you attack and you counteract the attack motion. Everybody now moves in, you push them back once again, and once you have finished pushing the enemy back, you finally have won your sector. Your beachhead team will deploy once you have started the assault. They will attempt to jump through the gate and get into their main flow. You want to push them back out on their secondary flow, even if they have overwhelming numbers. If you manage to stop them from getting into the gate, in other words, you stop the flow of enemies in and you force them to push back, then the assault team on that gate will jump onto the other side of the gate. And you obviously can ring around to do it to each of the gates on the outside. It will allow you to have a better formation for the inner side of your gate. And once everybody is ready, you jump back in and you complete your defense. It will take you a short amount of time to dispatch the enemy with these high level ships. That is the goal. You don't want operations that last more than 1 hour 30 minutes. The whole idea behind this is if you are going past 1 hour 30 minutes, you now have the problem of players needing to leave the game, and once they leave, it does make a big difference. So that is how you're going to play these formations. Now let's talk the overall logistics of building these ships. What is it going to cost you? If you doctrine and building it in your corps, they're going to cost you about 200 million a ship. So 200 million per production of one of these vessels. To each member, generally doctrines are kept 3 or 10. I'm not sure which way your corp would be doing it, but here's the whole idea. If you are running 10, 10 high-end assault battle cruisers will give you this massive number of reinforcement options. And remember, you are building two different types of ship. You're either building tornadoes and nagas, or tornadoes and oracles, or tornadoes and talos. So you're building both. Some of those who are cannon players will be able to play cannons in the large. Some of those who are lasers will be able to play lasers in the large. And these are your main members for your fleet. The rest of your corp doesn't have to get involved in CTAs every single time you call for a CTA. It makes you less dependent on numbers. If you ever do run into a fleet who's running the same type of formation, then you call in for the rest of your fleet and you use it for defenses and attacks and so forth. And as you keep running with this, make sure that you are making an income in a war. Make sure that during any battle, you aren't 100% involved in the battle. If your corp is 100% in the battle, you are losing progression to the next stage of the game. You lose. So always make sure that your corp is capable of growing during your battle. If your wallet is not ticking up, that means that you have lost your war. You have sacrificed the income of the day for a battle against an enemy. They may have lost 4.5 billion, but in that time they made 10 billion, they made 20 billion. You won a 4.5 billion victory. You lost hundreds of billions in potential. Your enemy gained 15 billion in that time. You made no difference to the fight. That is how it works. Yes, you can upset their operations. That is something you can do, but do not overwhelm the operation. Operations should always be broken up into teams who are active within the fleets for the CTAs and teams who are active outside of the fleets making money. Remember, taxes make your corp. Without a tax, you do not have the ability to keep up your doctrines. Your doctrines have to be cheap and ineffective. If you are running flies, that means Vexes and Myrmidons. The whole problem with it is you are running a fleet that can only do effective damage inside those shield fields. If they decide to play long-range battle on you, they're going to snipe out all of your little fleas moving towards them, and there you go. You're losing tons of drones. Drones aren't very, very cheap. They're about $1 million a piece. And let's say that you lose 2 to 3 thousand drones. That's 2,000 times $1 million. That's 2 billion. You lost 2 billion in drones, and there is a massive loss to take. While you could have been using ammo capacity like the cannons, where there's no loss, there's no ammo that has to be filled in. And let's see, what is the total loss on that there? You deploy, you don't lose the ship, you're using ammo. You losing any ammo? No, you're not losing any ammo. Yeah, so there's no ammo loss. You lose about 10 ships overall, 200 million a piece, that's 2 billion. So you've lost 2 billion in ships. You've lost 2 billion in ammo. Then you lose an additional 2 billion in ships. So yeah, that's 4 billion that you lost immediately by using flies or fleas, whichever way you want to call it for drones. So there's where you lose. That's your loss point. Your enemy gains on you in that point. It's a 4 billion loss versus a 2 billion loss. You just don't see the complete 4 billion loss because they're going to be able to pick up the loot afterwards after the fight, and it's going to be an equal fight on both sides. Now, let's say, for example, you decided to take on this heavy assault battle cruiser fleet with a Vexa Navy issue fleet, or Stabber Navy issue fleet, or a Caracal Navy issue fleet. Right? Okay, wait, I think I'm missing one. Vexa Navy issue, Stabber Fleet issue, Caracal Navy issue. Yeah, I am missing one. I'm forgetting which one it is. I'll remember it later. But anyway, if you are using those high-end ships, which are the best option, they cost about 100 million once fitted. And let's say they ran into a fleet full of Talos. The Talos are going to run them on close range combat most likely, or long range combat. If they ran into oracles, your drones are ineffective. They're just going to snipe your little ships out. Let's say that you're even running an armor doctrine with everything. they decide they're going to team up and they're going to use their maximum range of 75. So it's 75 for 75, you're in range. So let's see, it's 75 DPS to, it's your small DPS of 4 to 500, not 4 to 500, sorry. It's about 2,500 per volley from the drones. It's about 12,000 per volley from the lasers. They overwhelm your fleet, they destroy your MOA Guardian, right? So there you go, your primary Guardian is gone. Okay, let's say that you went with Armor Guardian. They overwhelm your fleet, they take out your Mauler Guardian. Your Mauler Guardian is gone, your ships are now vulnerable. They one-shot and two-shot all of your ships out of the fleet. One volley, one volley, one volley, you have a force of 200, let's say. And there you go. A fleet of 200 oracles will lose maybe about 10, 20 ships, while you lose a full 200. 200 times 100 million apiece, that's 2 billion. They lost 2 billion, you lost 2 billion. Your fleet was completely destroyed. Their fleet was partially destroyed. They picked up all the loot after the battle because they were the winners. They make away with your loot. They make away with whatever dropped from the oracles you destroyed. They destroy your entire fleet. They get more fuel for themselves. Easy victory. You just have to apply some brains to it, and that's how easy it is to take on the cruiser doctrines. If they're going to deploy something like a faction cruiser doctrine, that's a different story. Obviously, they have high power and they have high defense, high assault. You don't really want to take them on with any ship. The assault class battle cruisers will be a fair match to them. So yeah, it will go equal most likely in damage. You'll go 50-50 damage more than likely, and your variation in terms of your fleet will overwhelm the battle cruisers, so that will be the easier win. You also have the speed, mobility, everything with those ships. So yeah, that's the most likely impact. Obviously, the easiest way to beat a formation fleet like this is with battleships. You might be able to take out one or two from the entire formation, but you will suffer heavy losses to do that there. One or two will cost you maybe about 100 or 200 ships, and that is your overall performance. You don't have battleships to cover the front, so you're not losing something like 10 to take out 2. 10 to 2 is a very good ratio. 10 to 2 is a winning ratio for that overall combat, because you're only losing something like 6 billion while they losing 20 billion. 6 to 20, you winning by ratio of loss. Even though your fleet may disappear, the ratio loss is really in your favor. In the other fleet, the ratio loss was 4 billion to 2 billion. The other part of the loss was the fact that you lost your fleet. And if it was another Navy issue fleet, even Caracals, you lost 2 billion, they lost 2 billion, but your entire fleet was destroyed. You only destroyed 10 of their ships. They can replace 10 ships in no time. It will take you a few days to replace 200 ships. You get the point behind running effective doctrines. So that's the whole idea. That's what I'm trying to explain. So that is why you don't want to run the cheap doctrines anymore. They aren't going to be effective heading into sovereignty. Plus, you have the effect of stations with their massive DPS systems. If you deploy any type of Weber fires, you can Weber fire enemy, hold them in place, and have the station destroy them for you, making it an even easier combat scenario. So thank you all for watching. Have a good day.